Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast, here with Benji for the recap of the Vuelta España Stage 6. We've got it, a good stage. In fact, I think this is an outstanding stage, one I'll remember for quite a while. Thanks to Nicole for supporting the podcast. The profile, it looks boring. I was worried. 160 Ks long. We've got a descent, and then they're on pancake, flat, exposed roads near the coastline. Everyone's been mashing their thumbs on Twitter. Crosswinds. The last 2 days. Got a little bit quieter today. Well, got a little bit more exciting later in this stage when we all thought it'd calm down. Then it finishes with a 2K, 8.7% climb, the Alto de la Montaña de Cullera. I think they've used it in Valenciana before, maybe, where Pog went crazy. Can't remember. But anyway, Roglic was a heavy favourite. He's like the best puncher here because Alaphilippe's not here. So it's really whether Jumbo-Visma wanted to control. And Benji was pretty prescient yesterday saying, Lantern, don't assume GC is going to be up for chasing all day.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that. And we had a breakaway that actually had a long time of preparation trying to get away people. And first of all, many riders tried to get away. Schachmann tried to get away. Rubio, Klaes, Van Marke, Andreas Kron tried like twice already as well. Florian Sénéchal. We had a break that actually had a bit of time with Soto and now De Wolf, Kron and so forth. But eventually that one got caught as well. And eventually the ultimate breakaway formed. Well, not the ultimate when it comes to the riders in it, but some decent representation. Ryan Gibbons for UAE. We have Jean Beau. I hope that's how you pronounce it, for Euskaltel. We have Jetse Bol for Burgos BH. We have Magnus Scott Nielsen for Jeff Education Fast and Bert-Jan Lindemann for Quebeca, Assos, and that other brand I forgot about that is into crypto. But we also had one chaser, Guy Niv, who eventually got caught again, and that is very sad. So F in the chat for Guy Niv. But before we go any further, we have a wonderful, wonderful story about birds.
Well, okay, so I've been pretty depressed the last couple of days. You see, the world has not been so good. This is, by the way, Lantern story time. Sorry for y'all. And I'm like, this stage might not be good. I go for a big hike. I go over Col de Yovel. I got the second shot the other day, and I get to the top. It's like up at 1,800 meters, go past Col de Yovel, and I just bonked completely. I've only had one bar. I won't say the brand because, you got to pay for shout-outs on this pod. And I'm lying there. I look down at my phone. I open PCS. I see break 6 minutes, no one chasing. I go, you got to be kidding me. I look up at the sky. There's like 3 huge buzzards just circling. One comes down like pretty low. They're fucking big. And he's looking at me, and I just look up and I just think, just take me. Just do it. Like, I'm not going down and doing a pod on another non-GC day. Just end it because my legs are cooked as well. But he didn't. I went back into the shade, walked back down, come home, and then all of a sudden, Bike Exchange decided to improve my life significantly. Pacing. I was like, Bike Exchange? And it was for Matthews, obviously. I was like, didn't they watch Paris Stage 6, 2K, 6%? Roglic gave the lead up to Matthews and toasted him. I mean, good on them. But, yeah, were you surprised they took it up and surprised TJV didn't pace Benji? By the way, I'm going to put the photos on YouTube of the buzzards, so for proof. And how cooked I look.
I'm glad they took it up, and I think our opinion on whether they should have taken it up would all depend on how the outcome of the stage would go. If they catch the breakaway and Matthews had a competitive element in that, then it's worthy for them to take the front. But I honestly didn't know, looking at the profile, whether he would be competitive. But like you said yesterday, it might be worth trying if you have like a 10% or a 5% or a 15% chance of winning a stage on a stage like this, because it's honestly not the craziest stage to control. But then something happened and it was called wind, and somebody was not happy, and it was mainly Kenny Elissonde, but the rest of the peloton as well, because the peloton started splitting up left and right. And who was really the teams that were involved in creating it? Because usually you have the likes of the Koenig, but this time around it indeed was INEOS, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. Like these Narvaez, Pidcock, Bernal, Carapaz, they're all about, all under about 5'8", 60 kilos. They're shredding it. They go through this town. They're going to do it twice. And it's flat, exposed, really narrow road. It's like Spanish Valams territory, and except for the dusty road. And they split it. And not just like, a few guys off the back. I don't know where Adam Yates was. He's always lurking around the back of the peloton. We couldn't really see. Carthy, who is permanently at the back of the peloton, he was not even G2. He was like G5. Kenny went completely over the limit. Kenny Lassonde, like he eventually, it wasn't that long and the action stopped, but it definitely destroyed the legs of a lot of riders because, G2, G3 started coming back. I'm not sure where Landa was. I saw Haig there, but no other Bahrain guys. And, Kenny's getting passed by other guys. So I'm like, well, at this point, even if Elassonde comes back, he's 5 seconds ahead of Roglic. Red jersey is red jersey is 100% guaranteed for Roglic. So they can't avoid the red jersey because they're going to have to pace the climb. The break is now at 1:50, 2 minutes. And then they go back and, well, who would you say was the worst of the GC contenders in terms of faring in those crosswinds, Benji?
Well, it's clear, I think, that Hugh Carthy is horrendous at it. And it's mainly because before Echelon started, they're always at the back. Yesterday as well, when the Echelon nervousness happened, they were at the back of the peloton when they started. And it's during the Echelons that they try and move up. But usually that's too late because the split-ups already happened in front of you. So today, Carthy was in one of the last Echelons as well in the race. He came back to that group. And with like 9K to go, something odd happened. It was just him with a teammate just dropping on the back of the peloton, where Movistar was still pacing to try and get the rest of the breakaway back because those lads were still up front, or at least, basically all those lads. They hadn't actually split up yet from that point onwards. So Carthy is not looking good in that terrain, and he was off the back before the climb. They got him back once again with the team pacing again. But you know that if you get dropped 5 kilometers before a climb of 2 kilometers where Roglic is best at, you're going to get dropped on the climb again.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a pretty obvious point. But Movistar kept on chasing, and the break had a solid, how much? 30 seconds at the bottom? 20 seconds? Something like that?
Before we get into this final climb, just a further note on our show partner, Locol, who produce performance cycling apparel. They also produce custom kits all over the world. If you've got a group of friends that like riding, if you're at a club, etc., they've been doing that sustainably for years now. And if you want to check that out, it's at www.locol.cc. The link is in the description. There is also the lightweight summer kit, and all of this can be had with LR Vuelta 20. The discount code LR Vuelta 20 gives you 20% off, even discounted items. So there's some pretty crazy steals to be had. I just want to mention a few things in the run-in. So I think Magnus Cort might have been underestimated a little bit, although Movistar were just pacing. As I said, red is inevitable for Roglic. The climb is going to be done full. So there's no, you're going to do less effort if the break wins. The climb is going to be done full. And not only did Jumbo-Visma not pace at all, maybe conserving their riders to, ensure there's bonus seconds available for him, the 5-star favourite for this finish, they also had him in pretty bad position at the base. And Movistar kept their riders in really good position going into the run-in. I mean, as I keep saying it, Erviti, Verona, underrated domestiques. Those guys I think they perform when they need to and given clear instructions. Mal was looking good on the crosswinds. I was like, what price has certain riders paid for this action beforehand? Because yes, we didn't see riders losing 2 minutes in crosswinds, but there's a price to be paid for, the 2 times that people were trying to split it out of that town. And, Bernal and co were at the front, and maybe Yates was out of position having to close things himself. Anyway, as Benji said, they go into the base, and INEOS, I think the plan was pretty fluid in that this is not the day for them. They think Roglic is the favourite for this stage. And yet when they saw maybe that, okay, you've got Jumbo 20th wheel, maybe further back, and INEOS have got their guys at the front thanks to Dylan van Baal, it seemed like an opportunity for them, Benji, but I couldn't really ascertain what their plan was because to me it just looked like Narvaez thrashing around.
Yes, I feel like they launched at the bottom of the climb with Narvaez, and we saw his teammates, his leaders actually, Bernal, Yates, and so forth, having trouble following his wheel. So explosive at the bottom that, it feel like they tried to use the opportunity that Roglic was not in their wheel because Roglic apparently had to move up very late alone because the rest of his team was sitting in 25th position, something like that. So, we've got Narvaez going very explosive at the bottom, and we see that it's going too hard for his teammates because, his leader has to go to the side. Yates, he has to move out of the train because he can't follow the tempo of Narvaez there. So what would have happened if Narvaez is not going that ham? Well, probably Yates would have blown up a bit later on the climb. But yeah, this shows that the pace of Narvaez was certainly a bit too hard for those two. But what's your take on that?
It didn't make sense to me. I think what they should have done is, instead of closing the gaps to their own teammate for the other riders, is I think Narvaez should have obviously done smoother. And I was expecting Bernal to let Carapaz wheel go. That's what I was expecting. You got narrow run in, have Narvaez pacing Carapaz, Bernal let the wheel go, goes back and sits in the group, whatever, sits in, tries to conserve a little bit. Instead, he's closing basically to his own teammates for everyone else. And Roglic, it played out perfectly for Roglic, really, apart from his team not pacing before the climb. Up front, by the way, we have the tension of, will they still catch the break? Because, 30 seconds at the base. Magnus Cort has been doing like double pulls in the break the whole day, the Danish rider for EF. Who was the Quebecer rider, Benji?
Bertrand Lindemann.
They were working together. Those two were the cream of the crop. I think he followed the Euskaltel rider who attacked at the base. And then it was those two working. Cort drops him, and then he's just riding his pace solo. He's looking back, riding his pace solo. Narvaez has eaten into him so quickly, and then the TV coverage just shits itself, basically. Like, no one could see what was going on. They were showing Kenny's been dropped, like, not surprising, like he's losing the red jersey. Okay, got it. And then it's like helicopter shot we can't see. It's also like quite whitewashed because of the dust and everything, and it's just no fixed cameras. It was very difficult to see what was going on. I think Carapaz attacked.
I think it's logical that ASO chose to do that because, well, they know you've been bird watching all day, so you have some binoculars to look at the riders now.
I don't bring binoculars. I think Carapaz attacked. But I don't. It's hard to say. He then sort of cracked, and then we had Michael Matthews, who Bex had been pacing for a lot of the stage, coming up with a Vlasov on his wheel. Matthews almost panicking because the GC action stopped. And this is where Roglic, we suddenly see him appear fourth wheel. Happy days for him. Perfect. It slowed. He's been riding his own tempo, sits into fourth wheel. No worries. Baggioli's on his wheel. Valverde there as well. I think Movistar had also tried to get through a couple of the corners. It's corners here with Mal and Mas. They couldn't really get any purchase. And it was really Matthews, Benji, attacking with Vlasov on his wheel, which it surprised me, frankly. Firstly, incredible level from Matthews. Secondly, I don't know why he's doing that tactically. Do you think he was just worried about Cort about 6 seconds ahead of him?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a panic mode. You've got just, I think, like 700, 800 meters towards the top, and he's sitting in a group where Roglic is still in because Roglic has not dropped yet. So perhaps he's like, what if I get my advantage beforehand, because I'm a bit scared of doing it 1v1 versus Roglic again, because we know what happened in the past when I did that, and I still need to catch Cort. So perhaps if I do it now, the moment where Roglic is still at the back of the group, I might be able to get a bit of a gap and might get that going. But yeah, that's unlikely to happen because Roglic always keeps his energy for the last portion of it. But it was just so noticeable to me that Roglic played this so calmly, this entire climb, moving up rider by rider. And it was a bit like you're playing Where's Waldo, or what that is called, Where's Wally? And you have to look where Roglic is, and he was always sitting after somebody. And then in the last 700 meters, he started to move up, and it was clear that he was going to try at least something to close the gap towards Cort a bit.
Yeah, eventually Roglic starts his long attack. We saw this in stage 6 of Paris-Nice, as I said. We see it at the end of stage 7 Paris-Nice, the same attack where he came over Gino Maida at the end. And the same thing happens today. We've got Cort, who's not like cracked. He still looks visibly very strong. There's a left-hand bend in the last 35 meters, and Roglic is gaining on Cort so quickly in the last 150. I think it levels off a little bit, which is good for Cort. We've got Baggioli, the young Italian on Deceuninck Quickstep, on Roglic's wheel. Roglic drops him. Yeah, crazy. We'll talk about him in a second. Roglic drops him, but Cort gets to that left-hand corner first with a little, and Roglic isn't on his wheel either. He's able to punch out of it, and I don't think this was gifted. I think Cort wins the stage head-to-head. Incredible stage win from Cort after being the strongest and pulling the most in the break. Roglic coming second on the same time as him, just after, taking 6 bonus seconds, not the 10. Baggioli third on 2 seconds, and Vlasov and Mas on 4. Very good from them on 4 seconds behind Roglic. Then Matthews sixth, Bernal on 8 seconds with Valverde, then Lopez Grosjean at 9 and 16. So Big losers today, Benji. Adam Yates, 25 seconds off Roglic, and Landa and Carapaz, 27 seconds back. That's a huge gap for such a short climb.
Yes, certainly. And Landa, that's a bit unfortunate that it happens on a stage like this, because usually on these 2 kilometer stage and so forth, you'd expect to be able to keep the gap limited, but that is not the case because the most explosive riders can actually create a gap on a climb like this. And in a longer climb, Landa can keep that gap limited because he's got a longer climbing span to try and stay with the riders up front without them being such explosive riders in the last kilometer. But with Roglic, you still have that on the other climbs as well, to be fair. But I think that it's a real shame for him that he lost time here. Carapaz, not really a surprise, but I wonder if he would have been a bit closer if Narvaez didn't explode that hard at the bottom, for example. But then again, it's only because Narvaez is super strong today. Kroon being on 17th in between those riders is utterly insane, with Alex Aramburu there as well. Just want to note that. No connection between me and him and so forth. But what's most curious to me is that De La Cruz is actually doing a relatively decent Grand Tour so far.
Yeah, solid.
He's not close in GC anymore, and I actually don't remember where he lost the majority of his time, to be fairly honest. But I've got the feeling that Polans is working here today for him, also with a solid result. Großschartner pretty far up there, but a bit under what I would have expected for him here. But I feel like this climb went more towards a GC people than I initially expected, except for Bajoli then, because he just simply did what you proposed he could do yesterday, because you mentioned him for a potential win here as an outsider, because Roglic was the favorite here, and we also mentioned a potential breakaway winning it, but I didn't expect it to be that close, because I was expecting either the breakaway goes and they don't care, or the breakaway doesn't go and they do care. But I didn't expect it to be like 1 meter of difference. But about the gifting, there's arguments for it. So obviously Roglic could have in his mind, well, what happened with Meder in Paris-Nice? I took the stage away and the internet scrutinized me over it.
It proved he shouldn't gift it.
Yeah.
Because he needs more time the next day.
And the opposite part is today that, sure, it could be that he was like, okay, looking behind me, I can't be arsed to get past this guy. He can get it, okay? But yeah, there's arguments to both sides, but my take on it is quite simple. In a quote from my favorite TV show, Westworld, if no one can tell, does it really matter? So I don't care. Deserved win by Cort.
I don't think it was gifted. I think Cort won. I think Roglic left it too late, and yeah, TJV didn't pace in the valley somewhat curiously before the climb and cost Roglic 4 seconds. Will it matter? Probably not, but that's what I think happened. I think Cort was stronger. I think, he just left it too late. And he was happy to sit on the other GC contenders when, normally you'd want a rider to pace for him with 1K left on the climb to really keep it going, but Matthews really had to do that job. Bajoli, as Benji mentioned, super talent, 22 years old, out of contract. He beat Roglic in an uphill short punch in Tourdelin last year, 2020, when Roglic was absolutely flying. He's crazy good. And yeah,
but inconsistent. I think last year's Vuelta was a bit weak, if I recall correctly.
Is it? Yeah, maybe. He's 22. He's 21 though.
Yeah, sure.
I think he's young, and then Tourdelin was good this year. He's not really. I think he had an issue, a knee injury or something. He won Royal Bernard Drôme Classic at the start of the year. Yeah, I think he's crazy good. He's like Daryl Impey, sort of style rider in my view. A little bit smaller, maybe better climber. But otherwise,
an Italian.
An Italian. I mean, they don't have to be the same country. I was surprised. I think going back to the climb and the way it played out, I was going to be critical of Bike Exchange for pacing.
Mm-hmm.
I got a bit of egg on my face. I think Matthews physiologically showed today he could have won this stage.
Yep.
If certain things had played out, i.e. if there was no break, if he sat on Roglic, that didn't happen, but still he looked very, very good. I think Bernal, Benji, him losing 4 seconds to Vlasov and Mas, I personally, Roglic only putting 4 seconds into Vlasov and Mas suggests to me he left it very, very late. B, Bernal should not be losing 4 seconds to them on the road on this finish. And I think Narvaez and what happened at the start we talked about cost him a lot.
Yes, but I also don't think it's the end of the world because it's only 4 seconds here.
Yeah.
So I think there's going to be minutes in certain stages that are coming. So
I'll
I'm
do.
not too worried about that aspect. But hey, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I mean, it's not the Giro. Like it was won on bonus seconds last year by Roglic, but then I think it's a very different
True.
parcours here, which we did in the preview. The revised GC, Roglic now in the red jersey again, 25 seconds ahead of Mas. Lopez, it's a Movistar 2-3-4. Mas on 25, Lopez on 36, Valverde on 41, same time as Bernal in fifth. Vlasov moves up to sixth on 53 seconds. He did a good TT. Remember, Ciccone on 58. Julian Calmachan, the first of the break guys from the other day. Landers on 112. Aru is ahead of Yates on 10th on 117. Aru quietly, he came back to the group at the end of Blanco the other day, Benji.
Yeah.
Like he held
Crazy.
on really, really well. I want to talk about INEOS. That's what I want to ask you. But I've got two questions. First of all, Benji, which I wrote down this morning. If Pogacar was here, do you think Jumbo-Visma would have paced today? Say, assuming Roglic was like 8 to 15 seconds ahead of Pogacar in the GC standings before the stage.
I don't think so, because there's been a lot of occasions already where Pogacar has beaten Roglic after a last kilometer punch. And I feel like this is not just a sprint. This was also actually like a decent climb before the sprint, even though it's only 2 kilometers. It went more to the GC than I think a lot of people expected it to do. So, yeah, I think they wouldn't have paced because likely because of the prologue. I don't know who'd be better at a prologue.
Roglic.
I'd expect the same. So they'd be in the same situation, They'd be in a situation where they're the person that everybody's focusing on, and perhaps it's a bit more shared if Pogacar's here. But I wouldn't expect him to pace either.
But if you don't pace and gain time here on the bonuses on where you're the favourite, when are you going to gain the time? You got the TT at the end. You want to rest it all on TT at the end? I don't know.
Sure, after TDF 2020, of course.
I would have paced. Especially when Bex handed it to them. After that, when Bex handed it to them, I was like, you should pace. But doesn't matter, 4 seconds, whatever. Second question, Benji. INEOS GC, Carapaz he's lost a lot of time. He's not looking in great shape, but he's on 218. Like, you've got to chase him if he goes in a later stage. Yates not looking good. I mean, this guy losing this on this climb, I think, is not good. Bernal clearly their A-man now.
I would certainly expect so, but that doesn't mean that it can't change depending on the outcome of certain stage in the future. And I think we've spoken a lot about stage 7, which is very much coming very soon. So we'll discuss it a bit later in this podcast, but I think that's could play a role in this entire discussion. Who's the leader for INEOS as well? Depends on who ends up pumped up in the end, because they can still play with all three depending on whether they drop a few minutes more or not, because right now they're all in 2 minutes 18, if I recall correctly, of the leaders. So that's still a margin where you can play a tactical role and use co-leaders offensively like a Carapaz to attack, for example, tomorrow. But once again, that's something we'll discuss in a second.
Tomorrow's stage, you can probably tell I'm a lot more excited after today's stage. Tomorrow is one I was pumping up in the preview, just like stage 7 of the Tour, coincidentally. 152 Ks long. It's screaming raid to me. In the first 7 Ks, they open up with a 9.4 K, 6.2% climb, but the first 4.5 Ks are at 8.5%. That's Basque Country, stage 6 territory, right out the gate, descent, rolling ridge line, and then sort of 3Ks, 3.6%, and 7Ks, 5.2%. Descent, there's no flat in this stage, just about. Then there's like 2.2Ks, 9% later on. A little roller with bonus seconds on top, 5Ks, 5.3%, similar to Norton Summit, actually, that climb with 13Ks to the finish, and then 8.4Ks at 6.4% the finish. Now, if Jumbo-Visma had an absolutely dominant team that could control this, and Roglic should be the favourite for the stage. But if I'm Bahrain victorious, Benji, or if I'm INEOS, I want to try something on that first climb and test out the Jumbo riders, just try and replay Basque Country stage 6, try and slip riders into a break, some satellite riders, because I think, you can just put a lot of pressure on with the 4K, 8.5% climb out the gate. I don't think Jumbo-Visma will chase. I think they'll try and give red away again and just defend. How do you see it playing out?
I think that they should indeed play a satellite rider role. on the stage, and it will a bit depend on one team that is a bit out of the question right now when it comes to this discussion. So we're talking about Jumbo being the defensive role. They're going to have to defend with Roglic. They're in the jersey again, but that might not be the same after the stage. But next to that, for example, Bahrain, they have multiple riders to try and get in a breakaway. Of course, you have Bahrain losing time today, so it's a bit less effective. But what if you put Tratnik in the breakaway, for example, and he has a bit of a gap with like a bunch of riders that want to go for the stage as well? Perhaps INEOS sends it Narvaez. I think that's a good option to send in the breakaway on this one. Perhaps a Van Barle, either way, to be honest. But those are two domestiques then for two leaders that I think Jumbo would have a hard time trying to control those attacks. And next to that, you've got Movistar, and that's where my issue lies. What the hell is Movistar going to do? Because they're currently sitting in second, third, and fourth. They don't need to risk all-out crazy stuff, although they need to have a solid advantage before the time trial at the end. So they need to gain time, but are they willing to throw their eggs in the fire like that on stage like this? I doubt it. And
I don't think so.
That's where the issue lies with the other teams, because Movistar is a team willing to pace down both INEOS and both Bahrain if it comes better for them, regardless of what Jumbo is doing in the stage. So I think Movistar might be the savior of Jumbo on the stage if something like that happens. But if a Tratnik or a Narvaez is in the breakaway, where do you attack with a Carapaz or a Podin or whatever then? And then you're thinking about either the Puerto de Tondone, I think that's how it's called. I can't zoom in enough. Tudons, okay, not Tondone. That's Italian. and after that, we've got the El Collao. Like, either one of those two climbs where you try and bridge over. But I think if you go on the Tudons, then you're going to have to get rid of your satellite rider on the El Collao climb already. And then you've got a valley section to the TV, and then you have to do downhill again towards the last climb. So you're doing a lot yourself than if you make a move like that towards your satellite rider, because your satellite rider is not getting over Collao if you do it on Tudons, your move. So I think that's why they might not risk going so early, and they might wait a bit longer if they do a tactic like this. But I think we love tactics, and I think teams have often disappointed in that. So let's not get our hopes up too much, but I do hope somebody tries something like that.
I mean, I think Movistar, you got to remember their goal. I think Valverde said is just a podium on GC, and right now they're sitting 2, 3, 4. So as Benji said, do they need to really go all out tomorrow? They got a really deep team. They could. I'd love to see them try something, and I think it'd be pretty effective. Bahrain, actually, their guys aren't as far back on GC as I thought, Benji. Mayor's on 213, Padun 245, Haig 306, Poles 319. Bahrain have to try something tomorrow. If they just have a simple plan, everyone rides in front of Landa, protects Landa for the rest of this Vuelta,
I'm going to cry.
They can't win. Like, okay. It's literally pointless. Like, you lost 27 seconds. So either start going for stages with some of these guys or use them aggressively. And, Haig looked better today. So use them aggressively tomorrow. That's what I would do. They got the team for it. Tratnik can help in valleys. Astana, Benji, do you see the Izagirre brothers and Luis Leon and Fraile helping Vlasov?
I have the feeling that they're working together pretty well.
Yeah, I think so.
Recently, because they were even pacing for Aramburu for a bloody intermediate sprint on day 2. So if you're doing that, then you're sticking together quite well. But the question is Vlasov the kind of rider that is so offensive in the middle of the stage and tries to do something like that? And that's where I'm like, nah, I don't believe it. I think he's going to be the rider that tries to stay consistent throughout the Grand Tour and try and benefit from other people losing time in stages to move up in GC, and therefore try and end in the top 5 of La Vuelta. But yeah, I don't see him attacking in the middle of the stage. But then again, Astana, Basque Country, that's what happened.
Stage 8. And that's when true. Vlasov was there too, when they called back Luis Leon from the break.
Yeah, that's true.
That gorge as well. So seriously, tomorrow's a really...
I love it.
These guys have to try. If they're not, then just go for the podium on GC, or that's what they're doing. But yeah, we're just talking. We're doing our armchair DS stuff. Hope you enjoyed. Break win? Yeah, I think probably a break, to be honest.
Michael Storer, I think. Bardet's out of GC?
Did I say Aaronsman in the preview?
I don't remember at all.
I like Aronsman here as well, but he's not looked so good. But yeah, Stora looks mad strong. He's on GC though, Benji. Is he? Oh, no, he's at 12:55. I'm lying. Yeah, Stora looks really, really strong. He looks stronger than Bardet in some other
He's
stages.
speaking for third week in GC, you know?
I mean, yeah. Is he allowed to win? I guess he's already got the contract elsewhere because he won that stage. He's at Groupama next year.
Is he allowed to win? He's in prison, mate.
After he won at Tour de l'Ain, he got...
No, but I think that he's going to be fighting on the last climb against other people, and his saddle is going to be 2 millimeters too low to actually get that final punch in and lose the stage that way, I'm afraid.
Can Court win again? I'd really like Court for this stage. And yeah, I've just been apparently told that they're griffin vultures in the photo that tried to kill me today. But yeah, I don't know who my pick is. I still like Timon Aronsman or...
Good pick.
Yeah, I'm sticking with him. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Give it a like down below if you did. The Vuelta is back on, and we'll see you to recap of Stage 7 tomorrow. Ciao.